In this class we're going to talk about note-taking systems. Now, note-taking is very important for students to be able to capture information in lectures or from videos or from sound files or whatever the sources of information are. It's important for students to be able to capture the notes and use different styles of note-taking. Now, you'll see from the bottom right hand corner of this slide there are 95 slides in this session. In fact, the material is very straightforward and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each slide. The material is very straightforward. There's really no analysis required. There's no in-depth comment required. So I'm just going to present the slides in fairly fast progression and ask you to use the stop function on the video, wind it forwards, wind it backwards, stop, make your own notes and pad out your own notes and look them up later. But it's important that you become an effective note taker, so you're able to capture information efficiently and you know how to go about being an efficient student and an efficient researcher and an efficient business person. So handling notes is important. As I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm simply going to run through the various types and ask you to make your own notes and stop the videos as recorded. All the points on the slides are more or less self-explanatory. There are 5 types of method that this class will look into. The Cornell Method, which is the first one, the outline, mapping, charting and sentence method. It's for you to decide which one is best for you. Have a look at each of them in turn and decide which technique you like best and be aware of its advantages and disadvantages and start using this as an effective tool for capturing information. So we'll start by looking at the Cornell method. And what this is simply is notepaper, lined notepaper with your name, the teacher, the lecturer, the tutor, the respondent, the person, whatever, listed next, the class or the topic that's under consideration, the date, and then down the right hand side is a column for notes, and on the left hand side there are the main ideas. These are the key points, what needs to be remembered, the main point. 1 or 2 words which summarizes what's on the right hand side. So make notes on the right hand side. Each point gets a set of notes. Leave a few lines between each point and then go back later and write down what's that point about in 2 or 3 words on the left hand column. Then you've organized your notes. You have your notes and you've got a summary of the notes on the left hand side, I should say, in the left hand column. So you've got the main notes on the right hand column, a summary on the left hand column. And you can also use this for revision by simply covering the right hand column, looking at the left hand column, looking at the cue points, and then explaining what each point means, and then having a look, lift the card and have a look at what the main points said and see if there's a correspondence between them. Quite a useful technique. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go through these in great detail, so I'll ask you to make notes from the points that I'm making here. Essentially, these points are very straightforward, so I'll just skip through them without making much comment. As I said, stop the video from time to time, rewind it, wind it forwards, wind it backwards and so on, and make a note of these points. You may use the slide number on the bottom right hand side. You'll see at the moment I'm on slide 15 out of 95. So that gives you a marker at any time if you want to have a break from the session, go and do something else. You can come back and pick up the slide numbers on the bottom right hand side. So right now we're on slide 17. Now we're moving on to the second type, the outlining method. And again, I'll just present the notes here. They're very straightforward. They're all self-explanatory, so just make a note of them and make a note of the slide number they're on. So we're on slide 26 at the moment. The outlining method, and that's the method itself. 3 parts, 3 points in the method. We're on slide 36. You can see here that the outlining method, this example on inflation, we're simply outlining the various points. So we have the definition of inflation. That's our first, if you like, indent. Then we have the second, which is there are two kinds of inflation that we may identify. Demand pull and cost push. And these are indented again under the 2 kinds. We have the causes of inflation and the consequences of inflation. Again, indenting, we have unemployment and balance of payments. So that's the outlining method. Now we're going to move to slide 56 and look at the mapping method, another method for taking notes. And there's an example of the mapping method. In this case, let's say a general class describing the different parts to economics. It might say there's microeconomics and macroeconomics. And then macroeconomics is broken up into notes on inflation, notes on unemployment, notes on balance of payments, notes on economic growth, and so on. And under macroeconomics there might be inflation, and inflation is again subdivided into cost push inflation, demand pull inflation, and these can be broken up into smaller topics again. So that would be the essence of the mapping system. Now let's turn to the charting method, and again very straightforward points, so I'll stay quiet and you may note them down. We're moving to slide 69. The charting method may be presented in a table like this. Here we have 4 columns. It may be you've got 5 or 6 columns. In this case we have the date. So the big date here could be, say, 1936. People, well in this case the person, John Maynard Keynes. The event, published his book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, better known as the General Theory. Significance of what happened? Well, it influenced post-war economic policy right throughout the world. There might be other columns. You might want to talk about how this theory linked to other theory and looks at the critics of the theory. So you might have different columns, and what it's doing is it's linking various points back to one point. So it's linking a lot of other issues back to, say, John Maynard Keynes. So if someone mentions Keynes, then it recalls the publication, the main publication, which is the General Theory, why it was significant, and what the critics say about it, and what the advocates of the policy say about it as well. So that would be similar to the charting method of note-taking. The final method of note-taking that we're going to look at is the sentence method. And again, I'll stay quiet so you can make your own notes. As I said, everything is very, very straightforward. Make a note of the slide number on the bottom right-hand corner so that you may come back to this at any time and revisit the material. But for the moment, let's just go to slide 86 and the sentence method. In this slide, here we have perhaps a sentence given by a lecturer in a class on microeconomics. So in this case, the lecturer said that the demand for a product depends on many determinants. Price is probably the most important determinant. However, there are others. For example, income, advertising, the weather, tax, and other influences on the demand. So it's not just the price influence the demand for product, there are many factors. Now how you might take the notes on here might be as follows. You might say, well, demand depends on price and others. Also income, advertising. Well, you haven't got time to write down the word advertising, so you go adving. Then you've got weather, tax, and the plus sign. Plus means, and there are others. So you've made sample notes. You've made them quickly, and it should bring back to mind what the lecturer said. And it may be therefore, thereby I should say, possible to go back later and look at your notes and fill them out more effectively and more fully. Filling out what adving, A-D-V-I-N-G is. It's advertising, and fill out what that word, just in case you forget what it means. And what the plus sign means. It means others, and just go back and fill it all out. So that would be the sentence method. So you're trying to capture a lot of information in a sentence, but you're doing it by your own form of shorthand. Now when you've done the notes, it may also be necessary to have a bibliography and try and find a bibliography that matches the class. And it's always recommended to use a bibliography of that format, the one I've got on the slide now, which gives it alphabetically by surname for the author's surname. So it's D-J-P-R. And this is Deese, James and Ellen Deese. And this is the surname, so it's organized by surname first. Then the title of the work is How to Study. Which edition is it? Well, it's the 3rd edition. Where was it published? New York. Who published it? McGraw-Hill. When was it published? 1979. And each reference should have that sort of information. It should have the author's names, the title, the edition, the place of publication, the publisher, and the date. And that's the way a bibliography is compiled. So this is about note-taking. You have to select which ones you like and how you're going to take notes. It's important as a student skill. But it's also important as you go through life. When you attend meetings, you have to know how to take notes as well and be able to capture what is said using pen and paper. My personal preference is for the Cornell one, the one at the very start, but you may vary and pick one that suits you ideally. I didn't make a lot of comment through this because I think all the points in the class are self-explanatory, and it would be a waste of time, waste of your time and energy to listen to me discuss what is very obvious from the slides. So I just stay quiet while you make your own notes and pad out your own ideas about the different techniques of taking notes. That's all I'm going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.